Hey, what is up guys, welcome back to the channel and welcome back to Gran Turismo 7. So update 1.54 is here, and as always this brings along a bunch of brand new engine swaps. There are 10 of them with this update. Whilst it's definitely a mixed bag of different engine swaps, overall this is a very high powered update, with many of these cars having the ability to push out way over 1,000 brake horsepower. So let's get started with the new engine swap of the group. With the car brand new for update 1.54, the Porsche 992 brings its engine along also, the DKH-911. There are two engine swaps for this car. The first is the Subaru Impreza WRX STI from 2014. As you can see, it gives a PP bump of 507.05 to 596.12. The displacement also rockets up from 1994cc to 3745cc. It remains turbocharged and of course it remains four-wheel drive, however it does get a slight increase on the weight from 1490 to 1530. However, the maximum power will jump from 302 to 641. Overall, this engine swap will cost you only 250,000 credits, and honestly for a car like the Impreza, it's pretty fantastic. Although the swap itself can be thirsty in certain setups. The second of the swaps is of course the Porsche 911 GT3 RS. This car is receiving its second ever engine swap, and it remains another Porsche swap. So of course this time around it is the engine from the 992. In terms of the stats, it bumps it from 641.49 to 667.02. The displacement does go down from 3996 to 3745. It goes from naturally aspirated to turbocharged. The weight gets a slight increase of 7 kilograms, and the power goes from 491 to 641. We also see an increase to the torque, which goes from 47.0 to 81.6, and the weight to power ratio goes from 2.84 to 2.19. Whilst maybe not as strong as the race engine swap, this is still a fairly fantastic one, just making the car that much better. Next up is the returning K24A Civic engine from the Garage RCR Civic. This engine swap has been absolutely everywhere as of recent, and it is continuing that trend once again. The first of these swaps for this one is the Alfa Romeo Giulia Sprint Veloce from 1967, of course getting its first engine swap to the game, and it's a pretty fantastic one. It's not too overpowered. In terms of cost, it's relatively cheap at 250,000 credits. The swap is fairly incredible as well for the car. So in terms of the stats, it's a PP of 347.71 to 501.09. The displacement, well, it doesn't know. The aspiration goes from NA to turbocharged. Weight goes pretty much through the roof from 1040 to 1109. However, so does the power. 104 to 389, torque is increased from 14.2 to 44.8, and weight to power is 9.77 to 2.80. However, we're not stopping there with classic Honda swaps. The next one is going to be the A112 Abarth, which of course receives its first ever engine swap, and of course once again it is a Honda one. So in terms of the swap itself, these stats speak for themselves. 309.90 pp to 477.54. Once again, we don't know with the displacement, but the aspiration will once again go from naturally aspirated to turbocharged. The weight does go up quite a lot, once again 710 to 817, over 100 kilograms there. The max power goes from a modest 71 brake horsepower to 389, the torque from 8.9 to 44.8, and the weight to power on this one 9.80 to 2.06. Overall, a pretty great swap for the car. So from the old into the new, this is the brand new Jimny Sierra JC from 2018, which is receiving a day one engine swap with update 1.54, and it's a pretty fantastic one, really suiting the car itself. So in terms of the stats, it goes from 329.19 to 499.12. Once again, displacement we cannot tell. However, the aspiration goes from naturally aspirated to turbocharged. Now with this car being four-wheel drive, it absolutely suits this swap down to the ground. We see the weight from 1070 to 1167. The maximum power goes from 100 to 389, with the torque going from 13.3 to 44.8. The weight to power ratio is absolutely through the roof with this one, from 10.44 to 2.95. So let's move into the third engine swap of the update. This is the LS7 BRZ once again. This probably has the most swaps out of every single engine in the game by now. It brings two new swaps along. The first is the Mitsubishi Evo 8, of course coming with the previous update. This car now gets its first engine swap. Now I was pretty surprised at this one. Price wise it's 300,000 credits, pretty cheap. However, of course this is a drift engine swap, so if you want to, you know, kind of relive Tokyo Drift, you can pretty much go ahead and do that now. The PP rating goes from 513.11 to 652.27. Displacement absolutely jumps through the roof from 1997 to 7816. It remains turbocharged, four-wheel drive. Weight is going to go up slightly from 1400 to 1455. Max power goes from 276 to a whopping 1037. So there you go, the Evo 8 is now drift build ready. And it's not the only one either, as finally the Volvo 240 SE gets an engine swap with this update, and of course it is a drift engine swap. So for you tuners out there, this one goes from 326.53 to 556.38. The displacement jumps from 1986 to 7816, naturally aspirated to turbocharged. The weight does see an increase from 1324 to 1374. The max power goes from 109 to 1037, with the torque going from 16.1 to 121. Now in terms of the weight to power, this one, it's ridiculous, 11.88 to 1.30. All yours for 300,000 credits. So there you go, you can now go ahead and build a drift estate. So in terms of the final engine swap, this is the 8.0 WR16 64V4T Chiron engine swap, of course from the Bugatti Chiron. Now in terms of the first engine swap, of course staying with the high-end cars, this is the Audi R8 V10 Plus, which receives the Chiron engine swap, and coupled with a four-wheel drive system, this one is ridiculous. So it goes from 629.09 to 694.13. Displacement changes from 5204 to 7993. Naturally aspirated to turbocharged, with the weight increasing from 1454 to 1596. Max power though goes from 601 to 1479. Max torque goes from 57.1 to 165.5, with a weight to power ratio of 2.38 to 1.06 for a whopping 1.6 million. Definitely continuing the trend of the most expensive update. The second car to receive this swap is the Dodge Challenger Demon. Now this one I really didn't expect. I thought this would have got the LS7 or some kind of drifty swap, but no, it gets the Chiron swap. As you can see, it will take the PP rating from 625.06 to 666.59. Displacement from 6166 to 7993. It will go from supercharged to turbocharged. The weight will go up from 1941 kilograms to 2116. The max power will go from 840 to 1479. Max torque will go from 106.5 to 165.5, and the weight to power from 2.27 to 1.41. Overall, it is probably the weakest of the three Chiron engine swaps. So let's move into the final one. This is of course the GTR T-Spec, which gets the Chiron engine swap, not a race swap for once. So in terms of the swap for this GTR, as you can see, it will take the PP rating from 594.66 to 686.18. The displacement goes from 3799 to 7993. Again, it will remain turbocharged, keep its four-wheel drive, and the weight will increase from 1760 to 1945. In terms of the power, it's from 562 to 1479, max torque from 65.0 to 165.5, and the weight to power will go from 3.08 to 1.29. And with that, we complete all 10 engine swaps for update 1.54. So don't forget to let me know in the comments below which is your favourite of the update. Of course, this is a very high powered update. We have a brand new engine swap in terms of the new 911 engine swap. We also have the high power 1000+ brake horsepower of the BRZ and the Chiron, and of course the ridiculous low PP grind engine with the K24A Civic. For me, this is a pretty fantastic engine swap update with some pretty cool cars in there. Massive thank you to all of my channel members listed on screen. I hope you lot have a fantastic rest of your weekend. Take care guys, peace.